We are talking to Amy Blansit, who is running for the House of Representatives for the 133rd District for the Democratic seat. We have lots of good questions to pose to Amy. Thank you for coming here today.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me.
There's a couple questions that I've got because I am interested as a citizen of Springfield, what the difference is in candidates. And one thing I'd like to make sure the audience is aware of is if you have any questions about any of the candidates running for office, you can go to the League of Women Voters website. You can also find their materials all around the city in different locations. Those pamphlets that they are publishing will give you a very unbiased, nonpartisan description of the candidates, their platforms, so that you can make a better and more informed decision when the election comes around. Election day, which is midterm elections, they're just as vital as our every 4-year election, right? And that is going to be on November 8th. So make sure that you are registered to vote and show up, more importantly, show up and vote. So let's get into our conversation with Amy Blansit. So the first and foremost question I want to start with is what sets you apart from the opponent for your seat?
Okay. So one of them is my work here at Drew Lewis Foundation. I have been dedicated to community improvement for the last 10 years. And that means I've spent time working with residents. I've spent time asking what's needed. I've spent time with city officials. I've spent time with community leaders. And I've been a voice and an advocate. I've worked on collaborative movements, breaking down silos in order to bring individuals together who otherwise maybe weren't having conversation. I am a small business owner. I've not only started multiple businesses that didn't fail because I didn't have the support systems. I was an entrepreneur learning as I went. But then I've also had success in, even though we think of the world of nonprofit as not a business, if you will, it is. And it's a viable business that is really making change in our community. I have my education in health sciences. And right now, when we look at health outcomes and our state looking at how best to listen to the voters who elected to say we have to figure out how to expand Medicaid and provide it to citizens. I understand healthcare and healthcare systems, and that's what I've studied. And then I'm also an educator. And so a lot of this position is about interpreting what a bill means and then making sure that citizens who have to live under those bills and laws understand what that looks like, how can physicians operate under the Roe v. Wade changes, et cetera. And so really those experiences at the community level in education of myself and of education in my position at Missouri State have brought a lot of different areas where many candidates, including the individual I'm running against, often have only one area of expertise. I also grew up in poverty. And so I knew that education was important, and I'm a product of public education. And I understand the power and the importance of public education when we're looking at building our future Missourians and our future workforce. And so understanding what it takes to move out of poverty and now working with families in poverty, using systems and education, all really make a great candidate.
I remember hearing you say that a really important factor of your upbringing was the fact that your parents were foster parents.
Yes.
And you really understood the intricacies of that system and how it's so important to help our children. Is this going to be a part of your platform, and what part of what you're running on can help Springfield's children?
Sure. Well, yeah. So we know, Missouri has some of the highest rates of children in foster care. And having an understanding of what it was for my parents to be foster parents, my late husband and I were also foster parents. And so knowing what it takes to be educated in that system, working with the system, gives me also great insight. But as you mentioned, it's more important about my parents chose for my siblings and I to be socially aware from a very young age. Having individuals who are struggling, families that are in crisis, and seeing the effect of that trauma on, they were my siblings. We shared rooms, and I saw that firsthand of what it means to come from a home that is in crisis. And so that definitely will shape an understanding that I have that, again, I'm not sure there's many candidates across the ballot, who had parents who were foster parents or who have been foster parents themselves.
I agree. Now, zone 1 is the Grant Beach area, and that there is an area of that is a part of your constituency.
Yes.
But your constituency would run clear south to
all the way past slightly past Republic Road, yes.
And West Bypass,
yes.
Correct? So that's a vast difference in socioeconomic households. How do you plan to relate to people that are on all levels of income, lifestyles? What is your platform that you can really relate everybody to?
Sure.
Where your constituents are concerned.
Yeah, so it is a unique district where other candidates are, primarily like southeast or northwest, where the demographics are a little more consistent. Springfield's pretty diverse in the social economic status, minus that kind of southeast quadrant. But there is difference in the businesses on the north side along Chestnut Expressway versus those that are serving more of the neighborhood around the Kansas and Republic area. So one of the things that I've been working on over the last 6 or 7 months is going to businesses, going to neighborhood association meetings, and being intentional. We knock doors. So I knock doors north side, south side, and everywhere in between in order to listen to what individuals need. And regardless of social economic status, honestly, it all comes down to everyone is concerned about how the economy is going to affect them and their families. We are concerned about our children and making sure that they have education, and now after another recent shooting, that they are safe. And so it doesn't matter what your socioeconomic status is when we talk about the importance of family and community. And that's the other big thing is we are so disconnected from each other. Now we are so disconnected politically that it's really about how do we come back together? How do we create community? And how do we be intentional about that? If elected, I will be intentional about having town halls, or, it's one of those where citizens in Springfield have the responsibility to engage politicians, right? They should be invited to the table. You don't have to go to Jefferson City to educate a politician. The whole point of the House districts is that those politicians are your neighbors. And so that's my big thing too, is I've had individuals say, well, you're gonna leave Springfield and you're gonna be disconnected, or the Drew Lewis Foundation won't have its leadership. What's going to happen? And, that's my thing is, I will be back. Like, this is my home. In Jeff City, you live out of someone else's bedroom. And that's not how I want to spend my time and my weekend. So I will be back in Springfield, and I will spend that time listening and communicating with what's going on and how can we make sure that's represented in Jefferson City.
Yeah. You're talking about bringing Jefferson City here, which I think is awesome. So that means that you have the ear of individuals that you can talk with you can take those ideas and opinions to Jefferson City to make legislation that can be life-changing, or at least support with the knowledge that you've got people back here in Springfield that can back you and support you, and you're not just kind of going out there on your own. Whose ear do you have in Springfield that has really supported you? Earlier, you mentioned about your connections. You were in a meeting over at the university where you are an instructor. And I loved what you said about how they brought you into that meeting. Tell me a little bit more about that.
So when we were talking, earlier about what it's been like over these last 7 months, so you had asked, what are these connections, and whose ear do I have, and who has my ear? And I think that's an important thing too, in the idea of, unfortunately, many individuals have bought ears, and they're going up based on someone else put them there, or they've taken PAC money and there's expectations from those large funders. And first, that's something that I have worked not to do. If it was a PAC, it was because it was from firefighters or a group that I truly believed in. So mine is really going and meeting with. I realize that as a representative, there's going to be things about utilities, right? I mean, how electricity and water and those types of infrastructures are supported across our state. I flip my switch and I have power, and that's about all I know about, utilities. And so I spent time to go to CU and meet with the director there to ask, what is it that he needs in Springfield? With the ARPA funds that are available, or if there are future funding like that, how do we best build infrastructure so that we are building a better Springfield with our tax dollars? And you had asked about, so I got to go meet with my boss's boss's boss. So I met with Cliff at the university to talk about the opposite view that I have. Like, I'm faculty, and as faculty, we have our view of what we need in the education system. But when you go to the top level, and he's having to look at everything from the buildings and the grounds and the infrastructure, because the university is a state-owned entity where our tax dollars are responsible for keeping the buildings, up to date. But there's also staff, there's groundkeepers, there's education, and there are students. And so to sit in my boss's office and that switch of conversation of how can I support you, and what does it look like to make sure that we're continuing, one, to hold our universities high so that we're providing quality education, but two, so that we have what we need to be a city that is focused on educating. We have individuals who move here based on education. So it's an economic piece of what makes Springfield great. So as hard as I try, I've realized since becoming a candidate that when I go into a meeting that I've already proven myself in this community. I've spent years building a nonprofit where I could have done it on my own and sought the profit. But because of that, because of what I've given back and what I dedicate to our community, that trust is already there. And so when I'm walking into these meetings, even though I'm trying no, I'm just the employee, no, I'm just a Springfield citizen who's here for this thing, because I've built that trust, individuals are already seeing me as their elected official, and they're sharing with me in a way that's different. And so it's like the switch has been flipped and I can't unflip it, it's an honor. And it shows me the potential of what can happen should I get elected.
Yeah, and for those of you who may not be as familiar with what Amy's done, in 2013, she bought this school building that was just in ruins, and she renovated it, doing all of the lead and mold remediation, brought it back into life so that it became a community hub for the northwest side of Springfield. She started having community dinners, and those dinners led to conversations about education that was needed to lift people out of poverty, give them the tools to make life-changing strides. So that's when she went about creating a curriculum, and of course with the help of different organizations in the community. But this curriculum was created so that we could educate people and teach them financial literacy, parenting, how to have a healthy home, good nutrition, things that in most households sometimes do not get passed along in family conversations. So based on all of that, it was a way to help stop some of, or at least change, the generational poverty. In addition to that, she has changed the face of the Grant Beach neighborhood by buying up different homes with private funding. And those homes she has renovated and then turned around and made sure when it was possible, those homes were sold to members of the underserved community with intention of not over pricing the homes so that things weren't gentrified, and making sure property taxes were kept in line. So all of the things that we need to do to change a community without leaving behind its most important people, the people who already live here. So Amy's got vast knowledge of how to make the changes that we need to have in our politicians in Jeff City. Based on that, I want to know.
And I want to say, you said Amy has. And the important thing about me is I might be in leadership, but I empower other people to be a part of this. So this is not an Amy show. This is it's entrusting in others. It's kind of lighting that spark and having others see the possibility and then letting them thrive in their positions. It's putting together a team. Yeah. And it's in that servant leadership. I will clean the toilets, and I will, clean out one of the houses. I'll be the first to, move the disgusting used toilet out of an abandoned house because if someone else is going to have to do it, I will be there with them, and I will be leading that charge. And so it's through, and that I think that's so important because a lot of politicians are about me and how can I be the, get my ticket stamp so I can go to the next level in politics. And my focus is, how do we do better? If I can get as many people to duplicate what we do here, it changes more lives. So this isn't about how does Drew Lewis Foundation do everything. It's how does Drew Lewis Foundation as a team consult with others so that what we do expands. We're not a group that need credit, and that's what I love about this team. And it's that type of leadership that we need more of across our community and especially in Jefferson City.
Yeah, totally agreed. It's definitely a team. So how do you, because you've had to do this in order to sustain this nonprofit, how do you fundraise for, as a politician?
That's what's been most interesting. I think individuals who thought that I was going to jump into this would have this great financial base because I'm in nonprofit. And that's something I've been very careful with, that individuals who give to the nonprofit give for a very specific reason. And so I haven't talked much about my involvement with Drew Lewis Foundation because as a nonprofit, I want to protect it and I want to make sure that people understand there is separation. I do not ask anyone who has donated to Drew Lewis Foundation to donate to a financial campaign. And as a nonprofit, we maintain bipartisanship. So if I am doing campaigning, it is off this campus. If I am, calling and talking with donors, it's from information and lists that others have given me. It's friends who are hosting events and bringing new donors here. And so honestly, I have not raised much money as a candidate because one, I think that the amount of money that goes into campaigns is preventing many people from being able to run for office. And even though it does put money into our economy with the marketing and the people that we employ through that, I would much rather someone give to Drew Lewis Foundation than give to my campaign because yes, there's the potential of doing a lot for our community in Jefferson City, but I will never do it in a way that would ever jeopardize the work that we do here at Drew Lewis Foundation. So if money is what it takes to run a campaign, I won't cross those lines. If we win, we're going to win on individuals who were already donating to Democratic Party and were interested in donating to me for that reason.
Yeah, I can appreciate that. That's very meaningful. Especially as somebody who does fundraising, I really appreciate that those dollars continue to be earmarked for the services that we need over here at the foundation. So I appreciate that. How are you starting to see yourself as a legislator, and what do you see that role as you move forward?
I don't know that it's much different than what I do, except I guess where I will do it in Jefferson City. I'm already intentional about speaking with individuals about what's going on in our community. I know leaders in the police force. I know leaders in the fire department. We invite them to come into the community in order to help build conversation and relationships, rebuild trust in areas that it has been broken from a national view and a local view. And the only way we can make change is by being intentional, having those uncomfortable conversations, just looking at different leaders in the community. And by leaders, a lot of time we immediately think of like a city manager or a business owner, but grassroots leaders, individuals who are leading small nonprofits that are really looking at the problems in our community and figuring ways to build together And that's really been my theme through this as well, that this isn't the Amy Blansit show, that this really is about creating conversation, creating togetherness. Right now, our state is a super majority. And I tell people, I vote by candidate, right? I vote by the beliefs of the candidate, not by party. And I will vote for some Republicans when I believe in who they are and the strengths that they have. And so right now in Jefferson City, a Democrat does not have to be in the room for a bill to pass. And more horrifically, a female of either party does not have to be present for bills to be written and passed. And so our state is not representing Missourians. And so, that big thing for me is creating balance, creating the requirements of governing, which creates conversation. And how do we serve a majority? And that means working across the aisle, creating compromise, and serving the individuals in the district that I represent.
Yeah. And that's really helpful to know. Tell me, where your platform is concerned, where do you see your strongest stance or positions, I guess?
Sure. So those would come from my understanding and my background. One of them is going to be in health sciences. I mean, that is where my education, my doctorate, as well as my teaching is, has shaped who I am and the beliefs that I have. I study both local, national, and international health. And, we have some of the worst health outcomes, even though we spend the greatest amount in healthcare. And so there's some things that we can do to begin to put money back in taxpayers' pockets. And that can also be done through just some adjustments, reducing fraud and that sort. The other area is in education. I heavily value education from cradle to career, and we'll support that, whether it's K through 12, but also, we've got to look at workforce development and 4-year and 2-year education, and it's a combination of those in order to fill the gap of the positions that we have open in our state. So when we look at committees I might serve on, those are going to be the areas that are my strong suit. And that I hope to be able to add more value to and insight at our state level.
So tell me too, I always, people think, I'm going to be a politician, I'm going to be there forever. And so tell me, how do you see that unfolding? Because it's, we want to elect people who care and aren't just going to be fly by night. But we also want to make sure you're in there for the right reasons and not some personal aspiration to be superstar.
I don't have the same aspirations or maybe the same reasoning. I probably have the same aspirations, but maybe not the same reasoning of why I decided to run. For many, they do. I mean, most people are running because they do want to change, right? I mean, they want to be involved in the leadership at our state. But mine is not in this sense of I want to be seen as a politician and I want to do the right things to go to the next level in politics. Right. When people ask me why I got into politics, I wanted to serve on city council because I wanted to have an influence in Zone 1, right? I knew that was this near and dear thing that I could do and make a difference. And then another great candidate applied, and when I had seen that this seat was open and no one was going to even attempt it when it was such a narrow race, I knew that it was the right time and the right thing for me to do. I can't tell you in 2 years or 6 years when I'm at a term limit what I will do, because I'm going to have a whole new set of experiences. I'm going to understand more about what can I do at the next level, if that's what's right for me. But for many, the ability to have a job and be a politician, you either have to be a lawyer who's running a law office that can be run in your absence, you have to be independently wealthy, or someone else in your household has to be earning an income, or you have to have a very understanding employer. And so, it's one of those where Drew Lewis Foundation comes first, putting the right leadership and, making sure that that's running. But if it's to the demise of our community that I have gone into the next level of leadership and it's best for me to come back to Springfield, then that's what I will do. So when people ask me that question of what's next, the experiences that I'm going to have will determine what's next. So, we'll see. In 2 years, I've made that commitment. I would run again if there was that opportunity. But do I want to be the next level? I don't know. I don't know how to answer that until I've been there to experience what's possible.
Yeah, you don't know what you don't know. What have you enjoyed most about this experience?
So it's the thing most candidates start out fearful, most volunteers start out fearful, and it's going door to door.
Oh.
So it's one of those where you are knocking on someone's private space. You are knocking in someone's, afternoon or on a Saturday when they just simply want to be a family. It's in the middle of a Chiefs game. Well, let's say I don't do it during a Chiefs game, but it's before a Chiefs game when everyone's getting prepared. And so it is this like, oh, I'm invading someone else's space. But it's been amazing having conversation, being intentional about meeting people and asking them. Like, you knock on someone's door, can you imagine you're like, hey, I'm a neighbor down the street, and today I'm just knocking your door to find out, what do you need? How can we be a better community? What is it that would make you and your family happier, safer? What can I take to, a legislator? Can you imagine if your neighbor knocked on your door and asked you that? But that's what we as politicians, right? That's what we do. And it's been amazing to have individuals open up and share stories that, I keep telling the story of, I've never had 80-year-old women share stuff that they have had shame, they have hidden, and they've hidden it for, 60, 65 years. To have that type of open, because individuals see that there is chance and possibility that someone's going to consider them, that someone's going to listen to their voice and consider their voice when policy's being written. That has been heavy, it's been moving, it's been emotional, and it has been motivational to knock more doors and do what it takes to win this position.
Mm-hmm. Would you say that's what surprised you the most, or is there anything else that you've been like, oh man, was not expecting that?
No, because I've been so involved in the community, and I have actually been to Jefferson City. I've helped educate with Missouri Foundation for Health. I've been up with Crystal Quaid for some cliff effect stuff. I've upset a lot of people up there already. So, that part, I'm not afraid of that. I'm not bothered by going against the grain when that's what's needed. And so for me, it really has been that when individuals feel that there's someone who really is in their court, and they've been so open and so honest without having to, for me, you have to have a lot of trust, or I have to have a lot of trust in you to open up that way. And individuals see me as that representative already. And it's an honor to share those stories and to know those stories and to think about how can we do better.
I love that. Yeah, I can relate to that, just being a part of the foundation. So if people want to get a hold of you, ask you questions, what is the best way for them to reach out to you?
So I do have a website, which is easy, amyblansit.com. And you can email info@amyblansit.com. And I will call you back. I make calls all the time. Half of the District 133 has my phone number because I call from my personal number. Also on social media, we're watching that all the time. So definitely reach out. I try to communicate even when there's an opposing view on social media, because that's, again, a part of being a politician is we may not see eye to eye, but I need to know what your experiences are and what your opinion is so that all of that can go together in making sure that we're writing policy that is going to have a bigger effect, so that we can also avoid the unintentional consequences when we don't hear the other side of what a bill might do. So feel free, reach out. I'm going to coffee with someone who said something against me on social media, and I was like, let's grab coffee. I want to have conversation to listen to you. So it's, that's what a candidate should do, right? I mean, we don't see eye to eye. My job is to listen, not fight you. My job is to listen and to take that information and figure out how is it that we can blend those in to make sure that, again, everyone's voice is being heard. Not that we can solve everyone's or include everyone's voice in a policy, but we can at least broaden what those policies mean by listening to more voices.
I appreciate that. All right, one more time, people can reach you at
amyblansit.com or on social media, again, Facebook, Instagram, TikTok. Just search Amy Blansit and you'll find the Blansit for Missouri campaign.
And the email?
Is info@amyblansit.com.
Okay. All right, November 8th, make sure that you
Yes.
get out and vote at those polls. If you have any questions, always reach out to the League of Women Voters. They can definitely get you information on any of the candidates as well as any of the issues that are coming up to be voted on. Most importantly, even though it's midterm, get out there and vote. It is the only way to change
Absolutely.
the future. If you're not happy, vote. Thank you so much, Amy Blansit. It's been a pleasure. Again, I'm Holly Melton with the Drew Lewis Foundation for Enrichment Today. Thanks, everybody.